Hello, ladies and gentlemen. It is Ulan Gaming, and I am back talking about my personal favorite civilization, the United States. Now, you will see that once again we have our shitty 3-second rendition of the flag that I use for all of the tier lists. And yes, that is 100% accurate as to what the actual United States flag looks like. If you look, just don't look closely, and that is exactly what it looks like. Now, United States is one of the civilizations that came out with the definitive edition, and it is my personal favorite, and I couldn't tell you why. Its unique mechanics just work with me, and that's pretty much about it. It's a civilization that I just enjoy playing because I love the cool mechanics associated with it. Speaking of those unique mechanics, let's get into them now. So the first is the Minutemen / Marines. So United States have Minutemen instead of militiamen. So whereas other civilizations can spend 150 coin to get 6 militiamen, which are powerhouses of units that for in the early game there you get 6 of them, and they slowly drain their own HP until they only have 1 left and can get one shot by anything in the game. United States have Minutemen, which have the same stats, but they have several different quirks to them that make them different. The first is that starting in the Industrial Age, they start to Shadow Tech and scale for the endgame. The second change about Marines is that whereas Minutemen go down to 1 HP, Marines go down to half HP starting in the second age. So they will stop at 100, and then they will stop at higher HP caps once starting in the Industrial and Imperial Age, once they get more. And once you send the Marines cards, because they start as Minutemen, you can upgrade them into Marines using a card, in which they will no longer lose HP, and so become 150 food and coin for 6 very strong Shadow Tech scaling units with very high HP pools and damage, and they can just make an absolute powerhouse addition to your military as a support force, or as a main force if you know how to do a build based around them. They are one of my favorite, if not my absolute favorite, United States unit. The second unique mechanic associated with the United States is the state capital. So the state capital is a building for the United States, and it is available in Age 3, and it's essentially just a capital for other civilizations that's available in Age 5, but available 2 extra ages early and with a whole bunch of extra capabilities. And the United States has a card that allows them to create a capital in Age 2, and this is a highly recommended card. It's one of the go-to cards for most United States build orders, and the state capital is an extremely important building because whereas the capital just provides a couple useful text to your gathering and overall endgame upgrades in the Imperial Age, the state capital provides upgrades throughout all your ages, starting in Age 2, as well as the capability to make wagons, which is far more efficient than having your settlers build things. Instead of having 4 settlers build an outpost, you can just have a wagon build your outpost, and it's a lot safer, and you don't have to sacrifice some of your economic powerhouse for a couple seconds in order to make said outpost. The state capital is a very important building for fast fortresses or turtles or just anything that you need for the United States. The state capital has it all. They also have they also have federal cards. Now, this is something I was going to bring up originally in the Age Up system, but it's such a core, integral, and unique mechanic to the United States that I felt that I needed to add it here in the unique mechanics and talk about it earlier. So the unique United States mechanic is that they have a smaller deck limit. They can only have 21 cards in their shipment deck instead of 25 like other civilizations. But in exchange, they actually get more cards overall because they add cards to their deck with every single age up. And which cards they add depends on which state you age up with. So in actuality, the United States deck is bigger than other civilizations, but it's stricter because you have less freedom to pick your cards. You can't, for example, Indiana has a card that ships 1 Carbine Cavalry for each shipment you sent so far, and nobody sends this card, or nobody wants this card in their deck, but you have to take it if you age up with Indiana because it comes with the other card. They come in pairs. So the United States decks are all at once bigger but more restricted than other civilizations. And then they also, but you do get cooler cards. The federal cards are very strong cards generally that have lots of very incredible, unique effects that can make or break your build, and usually are what the whole builds are based around. And lastly is United States. This is something that goes along with Mexico too when I eventually get to them. The United States and Mexico have unique outlaws that are unique to them and are always available to the United States and Mexico no matter the map, whereas other outlaws are map dependent, such as Woku Horseman, which is a outlaw unit that is only available on specific Asian maps. United States and Mexico, and actually I think the Ethiopian Hausa as well, always have access to the same 3 outlaws that are unique to them on every single map. And as such, and they're even good outlaws too, and as such you can make builds based around outlaws using these civilizations. And it's something that it's very difficult to make outlaw-based builds for pretty much any other civilization in the entire game. The general playstyle for United States, I kind of struggled in saying what the general playstyle is, but I think most people would agree that USA is a bit more of a fast fortress civ than an Age 2 civ, but I also put /NA because United States has so much diversity in its possible strategies. United States and Mexico specifically are designed around the concepts of being as diverse as possible, so that when you go into a game with United States or Mexico, you really don't know what they're going to do. You don't know what bag of tricks they're going to pull up their sleeve, because they can just kind of do whatever. It's the freedom of build order that makes the United States and Mexico so special as civilizations, and so I just figured I would reflect that in my general playstyle, in that you can kind of expect a fast fortress more often than not, but really it's a toss-up with United States. You're never quite sure what they're going to do. As for age up system in Hero, we already went over the federal states. Whenever you age up, you get to add a federal state to your union, and besides providing a static bonus when you age up, it also adds 2 more state-specific cards to your deck for you to ship later. United States has lots of tools at their disposal to gain lots of XP throughout the match, so that they can send more of these decks and these cards and shipments throughout the game. Not quite as much as Aztec, but they got quite a bit of XP associated with them. And their hero is the General. So the General is the United States hero. He functions pretty similarly to a European explorer, but with a slightly higher HP pool, and the ability to create a banner starting in the Second Age, the Inspiring Flag. The Inspiring Flag does various effects, but it's essentially a static aura that can be captured by your opponent if you have no units or buildings around the flag in its immediate vicinity. The United States flag boosts attack by 10% of units that are underneath it. It also boosts construction speed as well as train speed for units. But it also comes with the cost of, unlike other auras, the United States flag is not mobile. It must be planted, and it must stay in one spot until the cooldown on the General is over and it can be replaced. It also can't be placed too close to a civilization's first town centers. So that means you can't place it next to your first town center right as you hit the Second Age and just get faster settler spawning. Unfortunately, that is not how that works. But you can do it on like your second or third town center by making a town center and then placing a banner right next to it. That is something that you can do, for sure. That is the mechanics of the General. As for unique units, the United States has a lot of them. Not quite as many as Mexico, but up there. United States has 2 unique artillery, 2 unique artillery, 2 unique heavy infantry, 3 unique light infantry, 2 unique light range cavalry, as well as their unique Minutemen. So to talk about their artillery first, we have the Gatling gun and the Quaker gun. Gatling guns are organ guns, but better. They have slightly less damage than organ guns, but still enough damage to one-shot veteran musketeers. And their whole thing is that they are fragile glass cannons that do a very large amount of damage and don't overkill the enemy, but are also extremely cheap and have good upgrade cards available to them. So the Gatling gun is a very integral part of the United States military, far more so than the organ gun, because it combines so well with the regular, which we will talk about in a second. The other unique artillery unit that United States has is the Quaker gun, a artillery that does no damage but looks like but shoots, causes explosions, makes trees fall, and can look like any artillery that you want it to. So if you want to look like you have 5 heavy cannons, you can. If you want to make it look like 5 culverins to prevent your enemy from making artillery, then you can. The Quaker gun is an absolutely fantastic piece in the United States arsenal. Now, in my tier list for the United States, I actually gave the Quaker guns an S tier ranking for artillery. That was mostly a joke, just because I love Quaker guns and I want more people to use them. They are absolutely fantastic. They're not S tier though. That was just me like having a little joke and having some fun. But the Quaker guns are an absolutely fantastic unit that have won me several games, and pretty much every game I have deployed them in, I have won, in part because of them. They trick the enemy into making unit compositions that are bad for your that are bad against your actual military. For example, if you park a whole bunch of regulars, you can set your Quakers to look like heavy cannons, and then your enemy just throws Hussar into your regular army, thinking that he's killing all the heavy cannons and is therefore making good trades, but in actuality you're just killing his whole army because he made the wrong army against yours. So that's kind of how the Quaker guns work. I've also had people see 5 heavy cannons and then just immediately quit, not realizing that they're fake. It's a very, very fun artillery piece to use that more people should use, I think. As for their unique heavy infantry, they have 2. They have the regular, which is essentially a musketeer with a bit of extra range and a bit of extra damage. The regular is going to be the frontline fighter for the United States, as well as their best massable anti-cavalry unit in a average playstyle kind of game. The regular is a fantastic unit, because although it doesn't have quite as many upgrades as some other musketeers, only having a 15% attack and hit point boost from 1 card, its higher bases and the help of the flag definitely help it in keeping up with the other heavy infantry types of the game, and its range is also very nice, allowing it to essentially kite other musketeer types just for a little bit until they close in. Which can really make a difference. They are more expensive. A lot of the United States units are very coin heavy. In fact, with the exception of the state militia, who costs food wood, I don't think there's a single United States unit that costs more food than coin. All of the United States units are coin heavy. I think the regular actually might be 55 food, 50 coin. It's either that or 50 food, 55 coin. I'm not entirely certain. But regardless, all of the regular is a coin-heavy unit, but the United States has access to a lot of coin-gathering upgrades, so it's relatively okay. United States also has access, as for their skirmishers, the United States has 2 standard skirmishers. Those are the state militia, which is an age 2 food wood costing unit that has low HP, that has low damage but high HP, and the sharpshooter, an age 3 unit that you can set available in age 2 through the use of a card that performs very well at taking out enemies from afar. It has one of the longest ranges of any skirmisher and is comparable to longbowmen in range, but also comparable to the Caçador from Portugal in terms of stats. The sharpshooter is a little more fragile than the Cassador, but far more damaging in that it has the highest multiplier of any units in the entire game against heavy infantry, and of any skirmisher unit in the entire game, because I know rifle riders have it 3 times. Sharpshooters have a 2.5 times multiplier against heavy infantry to the normal skirmishers 2, or even crossbowmen and archers 1.5 times. It has 2.5 times, and that's further upgradable through the use of counter-infantry rifling to get to 3.5 times. So the sharpshooters can be absolutely devastating with an extremely long-range attack and extremely high multipliers. You can actually get them to 3-shot musketeers in the Second Age if you send the Springfield Armory card and get counter-infantry rifling immediately in the Second Age. I have a whole build order based around it, actually. Very expensive units, though. Their other unit is the Minutemen/Marine, which we have already been over. I just put the Marine portrait there because that's what it looks like after you send the Marine card. It becomes a full-blown unit rather than kind of a weird kind of in-between unit that's kind of supplementing your forces but kind of not, you know? And then past that, we have the Carbine Cavalry, which serves as their Dragoon equivalent unit. The Carbine Cavalry is a very poor unit. The Carbine Cavalry has the issue of cavalry archers in that it has low attack but a high rate of fire, but slightly worse because whereas cavalry archers, because the Carbine Cavalry fires its shots in successive order, one after the other, like a pop, and then it has a longer wait in between, whereas the cavalry archers go just at double the speed of a normal attack. So they go pop, 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 and this is important because it means that if you want to hit it means that the Carbine Cavalry have to stay still for about for about 3/4 of a second in order to get both of their shots off, whereas the Cavalry Archers can just fire and then move immediately. And so it means that if you want to hit and run and keep your Carbine Cavalry safe, they're going to be very poor at it because they have even worse hit and run than Cavalry Archers in having the same damage per shot but slower rate of fire than Cavalry Archers, who are already pretty bad at hit and run in comparison to Dragoons. So the Carbine Cavalry is a very troublesome unit for the United States. It's cheap for a Dragoon unit, and it can stand and fire pretty decently. But there's very few occasions where you want a Dragoon unit to stand and fire, especially when it's as fragile as the Carbine Cavalry is. As for their 3 unique outlaws, they have the Gunslinger, the Owlhoot, and the Cowboy, which represent musketeers, skirmishers, and dragoons in that order. The Cowboy is by far the best of these. The United States outlaws all have charged actions, which is a mechanic that, although not unique to the United States, was created with the United States. But the Gunslinger and Owlhoot are very fine units that absolutely can be massed under the right circumstances. The Cowboy is by and away a step above the other two in terms of its efficiency. It is the best massable anti-cavalry that the United States has, but the problem, of course, being that you need to go with an outlaw-specific or mercenary-centric strategy in order to field them, which can make them rather difficult to field in large quantities, or just in an average game when you're not prepared to spend the huge amounts of coin that it requires to mass cowboys. But Cowboys are just essentially Dragoons, but better. They have lots of HP and base damage, and they have a very powerful charged action that does a very high chunk of damage and still retains its multipliers against cavalry. So the Owlhoot, just as a result, is very efficient at what it does. The charged action also has a lot more range than its normal attack. So I think the range did get nerfed recently in the February update, but it allows them to even fight their counters a little bit by popping in, using the charge action to do like 38 damage a tick per cowboy, and then run away before the skirmishers have a chance to react. And it's a very nice method that you can use at the Cowboys. But enough about that. As for primary unit compositions, we have the regular and the Gatling gun, a musketeer cannon, unit composition that is very standard for United States. Unlike other civilizations, because their carbine cavalry is so much weaker than their other units, United States is not able to efficiently do a skirmisher dragoon composition. So the best they can do is cowboys and then combine it with other mercenaries. And then I have a special mention for my own personal favorite unit composition for the United States, which is Marine Hussar Gatling gun. Take that as you will. I wrote down 3 things to watch out for when you are fighting against a United States player, and that's to look at the United States player's deck. I mentioned that the decks are all at the same time bigger and with more cards, but also very strict in how you can create them and very focused in what they do. And as a result, it means that you can easily see what a United States player is doing for their strategy by checking their deck, because they just don't have enough room in their deck to use it to put in cards that they don't plan on possibly using. So United States players' deck telegraphs what they are doing far more than other civilizations telegraph what they are doing, even Mexico. You also need to watch out for the flag. So you can see, the funny thing about the flag is you can see the flag through the fog of war as long as you've already scouted it before. You can see the flag even in areas you don't have direct line of sight, as long as the fog of war is gone. So a USA player will often drop the flag right on their forward base, which means that you can just look through the fog of war for a flag, and you'll know exactly where the United States player's forward base is. Lastly, this is one you'll rarely come across, but if you see Quaker guns in a United States player's deck, be aware that they probably will send them once they get to the industrial age, and so you need to be aware of the possibility that any artillery that you fight might not be real. And with that out of the way, thank you guys very much for watching. I hope you learned something about United States and are willing to give it a shot. It is one of my personal favorite civilizations in this game.